Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss the nice guys on business. I'll have what the nice guys on business are having. Running a business is hard. Being a business leader is even harder. The nice guys bring in top industry pros to help your business prosper in a tough world. Get real advice from real people to get you real results today. Now it's time for the Nice Guys on Business. Here's your hosts, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner.
So Nice Guy Community, Chris Yonker and his team work with companies big and small, as well as high achievers, including executives, entrepreneurs, and celebrities, to get some clarity on what they really want, and then make the strategy and the behavior shifts to get them there. He comes to our podcast as a fellow podcaster since 2020, I think December of 2020, as host of The Secret Thoughts of CEOs. His message and the messages of his guests hits a home run for me. And if you're facing crossroads in your business, this episode will impact you as his message has impacted me. Chris, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it very much.
Hey, I love having you here, man. And it's, I keep sharing this over and over again because it's very rare that I actually connect with another podcaster that has a message that's compelling enough for me to want to listen more than one or two episodes, because how many podcasts have started in the last, since the pandemic started?
Know. I wouldn't even bother to try to figure that out. Yeah.
So I went over to Apple and I started doing a search of podcasters that are pretty prolific. I mean, you guys, you've created podcasts since 2020, and I think, you got past Podfade, which is episode 10. I think you're somewhere around episode 60 now, or somewhere around there.
I think that sounds right. Yeah.
So take me through, if you would, some of the early stage of your career when you realized that maybe coaching and mentoring others was really what your gift is to the world.
Yeah. Right on. So, I worked at corporate America. I worked at 3M. Had a great career there. Started there out of college, and I thought I was going to climb the corporate ladder. Like that was my jam. I had a pension, and so I'm just doing the thing. And I don't know when it was in my career. Probably halfway. I'd been there maybe about 15, 20 years, and I was like, I think I really want to work for myself, but I'm not sure what to do. So I started looking at what if what can I do? Like, what can I? And so I did a software startup with some family members. I was pursuing also. I had about 2 or 3 different entrepreneurial endeavors of things that, and quite frankly, I think part of the problem is that I was focused on the outcome of what I wanted to create. I was like, well, how can I create a bunch of money and have and then be good? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't looking for something I love doing. I was looking for the result of something that could get me to where I wanted to go. I was studying Robert Kiyosaki. I was reading 4-Hour Work Week, but Tim Ferriss, and I'm like, all right, what do we invest in real estate? Like, what do we got to do here? And because I wanted the freedom and I wanted the autonomy, and then I had that movie running, and I kept hitting the wall because, quite frankly, I think no matter what it is that we do, we better love what we do, and we better be using our gifts and our talents when we do it. Like that's just the jam. And sometimes I run into entrepreneurs that are like, get involved with something because they love the idea of the outcome of that thing, but they're a slave to whatever it is, and they never really love it. And I always tell people, like, hey, if you're going to do something, you better love what you're doing. Because if you don't, you're going to quit, because it's going to suck at some point and it's going to be hard at some point, and you better have the drive to get through those times. So I was mentoring and coaching people well into my career, doing a lot of that at 3M, and I didn't realize it was a gift because it was so easy. I think when things come easy to us, we take them for granted. Yes. And when I hired my own first coach, he's like, dude, you should be coaching people. I'm like, what? No, that's not no big deal. I'm doing this or that. And so he helped me realize that. And then it led to some other friends had come to me, and I said, okay, well, just pay me a couple $100 a month and I'll give you advice. I mean, what the hell? And so I started doing some of that. And then it led to executive coaching about 12 years ago. And then, which is interesting, I started my business on my own 10 years ago, but at that time I was still with 3M. And so I'm basically building a consulting coaching practice while I'm at W2.
Yeah.
And in sales, and I was in a pretty decent sales position. And I'll tell you, I met or exceeded expectations every year I was with a company, all the way till when I left. And I was still able to build a multiple six-figure business while I was still, at a six-figure job. And I did that all in under 45 hours a week.
That's incredible.
But that's the reality. I mean, you and I didn't even talk about that before, but that's the reality of what happened.
Well, you mentioned two categories of people that you were coaching: the friends and the entrepreneurs that were the early stage startups, and maybe the bootstrappers or the people that are looking for venture capital, that kind of person. And then you mentioned executive coaching. Is there any difference from a personality perspective from executives to entrepreneurs, in your opinion?
No, typically now, like all the people I work with, and I gotta be careful saying executives because, they're CEOs, but they own their own businesses. I mean, I'd say 95% of all my clients own their family businesses. They own their own companies, or decent sized companies, but these are and with exception. So there is a difference. If you're working with someone who's in a company, working for a company, there's a little bit of different mentality because they're serving. They're serving the the board, or if it's publicly held, or they're trying to make the stockholders happy. So that's a different jam. But other than that, no. As far as the drive of the person, totally the same. The psychology of the person, pretty much the same. Most people that I work with are highly driven. They're disciplined people. They know how to get things done. But the challenge is they haven't, a lot of folks haven't figured out, how do I make this all work together? And that was even part of my own challenge, and what I kind of figured out for myself, and then ended up being part of the big part of the work that I do is like, how do we navigate to build a life journey, a business journey that we can enjoy while we're building it, instead of like, I'm going to sacrifice my marriage, I'm going to sacrifice time with my kids, I'm going to sacrifice taking care of myself. And in 5 years, then I'll do those things, which can end up happening, especially in an early stages of a business. I mean, I was talking to someone who's in a startup just recently, and the guy's working 70 hours a week. He's married, he's got a kid, and his wife and his kid they're getting his leftovers. And that's what I was challenging him. I'm like, man, you're giving them the little you have left. But you say that they're the most important thing. Could there be a different way?
What's interesting, as you were sharing that philosophy of that, this guy working, I remember the 90s. I basically missed the entire period of the 90s. I was in a different business. I was growing my own business, and it was in an early stage of growing the business. And unfortunately, it caused the destruction of my first marriage, and it was really bad, and created a lot of challenges between me and the relationships that were in my life that were not related to my work environment. I want to talk for a second and get your spin on this, about that age-old myth that working harder equates to greater success, and why we don't have to strive to work harder to break through to that next level in our career. How do you teach someone that really just is so passionate about their career and just wants to get to the next level and just keeps thinking, if I just work a little harder, I will get there? Yeah.
Okay. That's a really good question. So this is all psychologically driven, right? So I must work hard to have an outcome is a paradigm. A paradigm is a belief. It's something that we've chosen as true. And then we operate our worlds as if it's reality. But the fact of the matter is, if that were always true, if it were like a universal situation, then it would be true all the time. So we have to first believe that that's a possibility, that that's not always true all the time. I believe that we all must be challenged. I believe we also must go through challenges in order to grow and to get to where we want to go. I believe there is going to be effort. And I also believe that at times we'll probably struggle. Now, it doesn't mean we're looking for it, but it's going to happen. And we need to know that as soon as we set a goal and a vision and a dream and we start going down that road, there will be a level of chaos that will develop. It just happens. We have to realize this is this is part of the process.
Yeah.
When I start working with someone one-on-one, one of my jobs is to figure out, well, when's this person going to quit if they quit? What's their pattern? So I can help them be prepared when they hit the terror barrier, when they hit a wall, when they hit like, holy crap, like this is like whatever it is, because something's going to happen. And it's how we navigate that it makes the difference. Now, working more and working harder isn't ever the case. Now, I'm not saying we don't work. That's not what I'm saying. It's how we pursue the work. And if you think about some of the biggest breakthroughs that you've had, they've probably come relatively easily. They probably come with some ease and grace. And we got to ask ourselves, well, how does that happen? When I stop struggling, things tend to flow. In order to be in order to push against something, then there has to be resistance. And my goal is like, how do I get people out of resistance? How do I get someone to a place where, David Hawkins did a bunch of work around this, and there's a book he wrote called The Power versus Force, which is really very interesting. And he wrote another one called Letting Go. And Hawkins talked about the idea of when you're forcing something and trying to push through something, that all the energy that's being leveraged and utilized, and there's a better way, that it's an easier way in pursuing something. So I think the first order of business is to believe that you can get somewhere without working harder and working more. And yes, smarter is absolutely essential. But that if you don't own the paradigm, and I'll share a quick story on this.
Yeah.
Can I share a quick story on
Absolutely.
this topic?
Sure,
Okay.
Chris, go.
So I had an entrepreneur. We're working on basically replacing himself in his business, so he didn't have to be doing all the things he was doing as a CEO. And so we did that. I mean, it's pretty functional. Like you figure out, what are you doing, and how do we make you insignificant to the business? I mean, it's a little bit of it's a process.
It
right?
is an exercise I have been through.
Yeah.
We've successfully done that for me.
Yeah, good for you. So how do I make you insignificant to business? And so we did that. And the challenge was, though, is that in the short order, I'm talking to someone on the leadership team. He's back in these operational meetings, and not only is he back in them, he's digging in and stirring things up and causing kind of problems. And so I had a conversation with him, like, what's going on? And he tells me what's going on. And it was a story about why he had to do it. Now, we got to realize that we will always make stories to justify our behavior and our thinking, so we can stay the same, so we can stay safe, so we can stay stuck. It's our subconscious mind wants to keep us where we are typically. And so I said, well, what if I said, let me ask you a different question. I said, what do you believe about success? If you had to give a high school talk on success, what would you say? He said, well, I believe that you have to work hard, that you struggle, and then you have a breakthrough, and then you have success. And I said, okay. And I said, do you always have to work hard and struggle? And he said, yes. I said, how do you know? Because I've never known any other way. And I'm like, interesting. I said, so what if you didn't have to? Like, what would that mean? He said, well, if I got success, I didn't have to struggle, then I wouldn't deserve it. And I'm like, whoa. So we had to address that, because the fact of the matter was, he was always going to create problems and then have to struggle, because if his success was coming easy, which it was a new situation for him. It was a new, and we had to work on the paradigm. It's like, if you don't work at the level of thinking that's driving behavior, it's like driving the car with a emergency brake 2 clicks on, and then you're just trying to give it more gas. I just give it more gas. If I just push the accelerator down harder, I can get to where I want to go.
Back in 2019, my partner and I, we own a company called Turnkey Podcast Productions, and my partner and I, I've shared this story many times, so I'll give you the abridged version so you can hear it, and I'll save my audience from having to hear the whole story again. 2019, as a part of our goals for the year, we decided that we were going to only do the stuff that was in, as Gay Hendricks would call, your zone of genius from the Big Leap. And that meant for him, he was going to deal with systems and systems processing and development. And I was going to do everything that related to relationships and selling, the stuff that I really love to do with the company. and I was going to eliminate all things like spreadsheets and accounting and all the stuff that really dragged me through the muck of our company. And he was going to stay out of stuff like social media and marketing and selling and all the stuff that he was miserable with. We reduced our hours probably from 60 hours a week down to what we had as our goal was 12 hours, but I would say somewhere around 15 hours a week, each of us running our business. We actually, that year and every year since then, we have become more successful, or the business has grown as a direct result of us hiring people to do the shit that we didn't want to do.
Right.
So I completely can relate to you saying, that look, you got to stay within that stuff that's your passion, the stuff that you really love, the stuff that really serves you. But I also understand your clients' feeling of, God, if I just got back in that meeting, I'm sure I could make things even better. When I started to come back to the micromanaging the shit that I shouldn't be doing anyway, I discovered that I spent more time, I had more stress in my life, and we probably, now I can't gauge this with numbers, but I feel like we had less satisfied customers when I put my hands in the shit that I shouldn't put my hands in. Is that pretty typical of what happens when somebody gets back involved in the stuff they shouldn't be doing?
Yeah, I would say so. Look at why are they? Right? Like if we sat down and we figured out, what do you want your life to look like? Like, how do you want to live? We started with, big questions like, who am I? Why am I here? To, health and well-being, loving relationships, just part of my process I go through. We can really map it out. The experiences you want to create, the environments you want to live in, like when you want to start your day, what's the ideal day? Start at 9. Okay, cool. I'm going to get done by 3. Awesome. I'm going to, I just, it came from a massage. Like, so why? Because they're baked into my month. Every month I get one, right? And then I get acupuncture, and they're all baked. It's all baked in because it's all part of the movie that I want to live in, right? And so we get absolute clarity in what we want and why. And here's the key, though. We've got to do it from a place, though. We're not trying to drive and heal or solve for our dysfunction within our business. And that's where things can kind of get insidious. Like if I have to drive my level of significance from solving a problem for someone else, and I can't feel good unless I solve problems, then I got to go out and find problems or create problems. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm looking to get under that current and find out, what's driving the behavior. And for entrepreneurs and high achievers, what I found is it's typically one of 3 things. It's either A, I want to be number one. B, I want to have power or authority. Or C, I want to be known. I want to be in this certain circle. And each of these 3 things are drivers for entrepreneurs and really can drive people to be very successful. But the problem is later on, when you want more joy, happiness, fulfillment, and peace, you can't figure out why you can't get it. And the reason is because you extrinsically driven yourself to drive conditions that you don't always have control over all the time. And so my goal is with folks is like, hey, I think having a drive is really important and we need to have one, but let's find a way to recalibrate what that looks like. So we're not trying to do something tied to our ego. Like I had an entrepreneur that was going to sell his business and it was for tens of millions of dollars. And it's like, okay, so I'm just gonna throw a number out and say he's gonna sell it for 40 million. And he's like, maybe I should keep it. And I'm like, okay, why? And he said, well, because I believe if I held it for 5 more years, I can get 60. And I'm like, well, how much do you really need though? Like, I'm not here to judge that, right? Right. And he heard it because part of our work, he figured out his number. He had what he needed. And it was his ego. He was afraid that he'd be the guy that could say, I sold my business for X, but then, I'll meet the guy who sold it for 60 or 70 or 80, and then I want to, I don't want to be the guy that could have got more. Isn't that interesting? Yeah,
that's so interesting. But it is so entrepreneurial in his way of thinking, and so I-centered in his way of thinking as well. But I appreciate the answer and you putting him on at least on track to understand or to reflect back to him the words that he was saying. So those that are in our Nice Guy community, if you want to get a little bit more information about what Chris does and how he does it, and if you want to actually build your life by design, architecting the life of your dreams, I would say probably a really good place to start. We'll make sure we put a link in the show notes for this, but Chris has got a free vision workbook. And we'll put the link in there because if I say greatestyearsofyourlife.com, you're going to ask me about how to spell it and all that stuff. And Nice Guy Community, just go over to the show notes. It's right in there. Can you maybe give a little information about what's in that that vision workbook? And then I want to get back into some of these questions that I have.
Yeah. So it's basically, in essence, it's an orientation, and it's basically a process to build a compass to navigate your future. I mean, we spend more time planning a vacation, right, than we do our lives. And why wouldn't you want to plan and go through the mindset, the psychology, the strategies, all the pieces to really construct a really good, clear 360 vision? And there's questions in there to answer. And I'm actually also building this right now in a format that will be delivered electronically too for people that want to go through the exercises. So
nice, very cool. Hey, tell me a little bit about, speaking of like creating your vision, can you or someone's vision that is coming to you? Can you share maybe to put this in real world for somebody that might be listening to the show and saying, well, I'll download the doc because Chris is on the show and I listen to the show and I trust what Doug has to say and all that. But I really would love to know, like, what are some of the symptoms that you see from the people that that own their own business that are trying to figure out all of this North Star or figuring out their vision?
Yeah. Good question. One is they're not feeding the relationships. They're loving relationships. So they have a significant other, and there's just, you can't replace quality time in a family with a loving relationship or with the kids. So looking at what are my relationships like at home, and I'm assuming that they matter for most people, then, am I really congruent? And are they getting my leftovers? It's my family, and, it's my spouse. Are they getting the little that's left for me each week? The other thing I can think about too is, like, can you go away? Now, if you're a startup, I get it. Okay. Like, you're brand new, but still, the question still is can you go away and take off a week or 2 weeks and just totally, we were just in Grand Cayman a couple weeks ago. I didn't do any email. I wasn't on my phone. I unplugged. I just spent time with my family. I am totally, why? Because I was there to be on vacation, to be with my family, and I'm going to be fully present. So can you be fully present? That's the other question. Can you be fully present when you're with your family, or are you thinking about work? And when you're at work, are you thinking about your family? That's something else to think about. I think health and wellness should be important for all of us, because if you don't have it, your life's not going to be so great. And, are you doing the things to keep that in check? And so that's, and then what does it mean to build a high quality of life? If you're an entrepreneur, you probably want high quality of life. Well, what's that mean? Like, what's your personal definition of it? And do you have a gap in that personal definition? And what's needed? And we create a story. Like you said, you built a team up around you. So have I, right? You can build a team. I mean, I read the 4-Hour Work Week, which I'm sure you've read. And I'm like, holy shit, I can outsource this. I mean, that's how I did. How do you think I did things at 3M? I'm like, all right, well, I need to hire an assistant right away. Boom, I did, right? And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to do my expense account at 3M. I don't want to do that. I know, I understand, but I need to have it done, and I'm not doing it. It's a low value activity, and I hate it. So like, yep. I was constantly looking for, like, all the things that I like. Just like you said, what can I be there? If we figure out where your genius zone is, and you focus on that, and then you build a team around you to do everything else. Like, I don't manage my own calendar. I don't want to manage my calendar. I want to just be here, right? I just want to work with clients and work on business development. That's it. I don't want to do the other stuff.
Good plan. It really is a good plan. And I think that those in our Nice Guy community, you would probably want to live that plan as well. But not everything is always as we want it to be. So can you be relatable to our community of people that are struggling? Even me, there's many things that in my career and even in my personal life that I'm still working on. Obviously, I've got that construction sign above my head all the time, work in progress. What's some of the stuff as a business owner that you are still working on, trying to get to that next level for yourself?
Yeah, good question. I think the one area, and I'm a sales guy, right? I came from sales, but I'm great when I'm working with talking to folks, and the sales is not a challenge for me, but lead generation can be at times when we're managing a portfolio of clients. There's a mix that we have, and managing that mix to not be too many and be just enough, and working with timelines tied to projects, and then coordinating speaking engagements to generate leads, or things that are because referrals you can ask for them, but typically you don't. And I just got one today. They come to you. You don't. It's just
they come
how
when
it works.
they come.
You do good work,
I
right?
wish
They
I
come
had
when they come, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, so I'm constantly working with my team and even for myself, and like the psychology of how do I control flow and relationship to as I continue to grow the business, so that I have what I would call the right balanced amount of clients at any given point in time, with a waiting list, if you will. And that's where you ask what am I working on? That I'd say, gee, Chris, what's your biggest challenge? That's been it. I've got a great team. I've got great people working with me. I've been able to retain the people that I've got working with me, and so I'm very blessed that way.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I think that one of the biggest challenges that I have as an entrepreneur, and same with my partner, is that neither one of us are marketing people. We just put in a marketing expert. Let's call this group an expert for what they do. Yet to be proven yet, but we're brand new in the early stages, and we're constantly trying to figure out, okay, how do we get that phone to ring? Me, very similar to you. I love the relationship build. I love the selling side of things. I feel like if you have a product or service that is of value and it can bring value to somebody else's life, it's not really selling. It's just kind of delivering what you do, and that makes it really easy to charge a good amount for what you do and to deliver it at an expert level. So it's definitely something that comes easier to me than the marketing thing. So appreciate you saying that. Hey, from just so those in our community can understand, like who shaped and how you shaped your business. Did you have any mentors early on outside of your organization, or maybe even a silent mentor, someone that you read their books or followed their philosophy, or anybody like that? Because you definitely have a unique flair about your casual, laid-back style, kind of like California. Although I think you're in New Hampshire, aren't you?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You're not the first person to bring that up. Oh, well, I'm just like everybody that's here, right? Like, we're all students. You wouldn't be listening to the show if you weren't a student. And so then you got to ask yourself, who you're reading and what are you studying? And I've studied everything from, things like, I'm going to read Traction, or I'll read Scaling Up, Bert Harnish's work, or things along that line about business development, or I'll read things around what else have I studied? I love Patrick Lencioni when it comes to building teams. So someone out there like to build a team, you should study Patrick Lencioni. He's a great author on that. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team is an amazing model, and how to do that. Study leadership, but I think that the most impactful relationships, quite frankly, that I've had outside of studying the books like that, and books on philosophy, and books on psychology, and books on spirituality, is the coaches that I've hired and worked with, that have really helped me see myself in a deeper way. I have someone I work with on mindset. I have someone I work with that helps me with strategy, and I have a personal trainer. So, I have a financial advisor. There's 4 people. So I basically build my own board. And I would suggest that to anyone out there, even if you don't have the money, right? Like, find a mentor, someone that you build a board of advisors, of people who have the fruit of what you want, or who've helped other people get it. You've got to have either one of those things. If you haven't done it, or you haven't helped other people get there, then they're probably not the best mentor for you. There's plenty of people to give advice, but especially in families. But that's so to me, I had Tom as a coach of mine. I had 20 something years ago. It was just spectacular and really helped me see. I came from an alcoholic home. I came from a situation where I had no self-esteem, a lot of bullying. That's why I started studying karate. Karate was a huge driver for me. I'm a tenured 7th degree black belt. I've been studying for a long time, but I just started when I was 15 years old. But so I would say that finding someone that can call you, basically point out, you can't read the read the label from the inside of the bottle. And so you need someone to be able to shed a light on your blind spots, on where your thinking might be off, where your behavior might be off, whatever that might be. And that's to me, that's a fast track in regards to being able to make huge shifts and quantum shifts in regards to the changes that we want to make.
Once again, Chris's show is called The Secret Thoughts of CEOs. I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes so you have access to that, so you can get a little bit more information about how Chris does what he does. He's got some great people. He had Jeremy Slate, was just a recent episode that he aired, and he's got a bunch of other leaders, CEOs, of course, that have explained the stuff that goes on in their life to help them achieve the success that they've had. If you want to take advantage of the free vision workbook, make sure you check the link in the show notes, greatestyearsofyourlife.com. It's in there. Again, don't worry about the spelling. Just check the show notes, and there'll be an active link right in there. Chris, I so appreciate you sharing your message today. Any final words of wisdom that you can impart upon our community to help them take their lives, whether personal or professional, to the next level?
Hey, if you're inspired to pursue something, you really feel pulled, then doubt your doubts and find someone that believes in you as much or more than yourself, and listen to them.
Excellent word. Excellent advice. Thanks, Chris, for being on the show. Thanks for sharing with our community today.
Thank you.
Hey, Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Chris Yonker. All of his information, including access to his book, his podcast, and his free vision workbook will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. They have listeners in other countries? I didn't think anyone was listening outside of their house, except maybe their moms.